Hi guys. So I think the part that I left off on the last video was about parthenogenesis. And so this is reproduction without any genetic contribution from a male. So this is females having babies without sperm from a male. And I wanted to do a little bit of clarification to let you know kind of how this works. So in reptiles, females, like in humans, females are XX and males are XY, but it's actually reversed in females, or in reptiles, sorry. So let's look at my females here, which would be XY. I'm going to show you guys this in a second. Okay. And this is a male, giving you guys a little visual here to try to help. Okay, so we've got, trying to figure this out a little bit. We've got, there you go, XY for female and XX for male. Now, in some of the videos that you watched, you learned that when these females that use parthenogenesis to reproduce, not all of the eggs are viable. They don't actually hatch. They're just, they're no good. So when a female makes her eggs, they only give half of their genetic info. So she could either pass on an X or a Y, right? So she could pass on an X or a Y. So what happens in parthenogenesis is they actually just copy their own DNA inside of their egg. So this egg over here would end up having XX, and this egg over here would end up YY. So if you look here, we have our XX egg would produce an XX offspring, which would be male. The Y egg would produce YY, and if we, look here, YY isn't anything. So these YY eggs would be the not viable ones. They would not produce any offspring. And then all of our XX eggs then would be males. So this is why females that reproduce using parthenogenesis will only create male offspring. Okay, so in some of the videos, it told you that this is only, parthenogenesis is only an option for reptiles for only one generation, because you'd end up with all males. So eventually these females are going to have to reproduce with a male in order to get new females again, okay? Because it is the female that has to be able to throw that Y chromosome in with an X from a male to make any more females. So in parthenogenesis, reptiles, females will only produce male offspring because there's no such thing as a YY offspring, okay? All right, so I wanted to kind of clarify that a little bit. Sorry that that wasn't on like a slide or anything, and I did my best there. So if you have any questions on parthenogenesis, just let me know and we can go back over that. So today we're going to get into the specifics of some different orders of reptiles. And the first order that we're going to look at is testudines, which are the turtles and tortoises, okay? So first characteristic we want to talk about is they have a really bony shell. That shell is not separate from their skeleton. It is fused to their skeleton, so it is impossible to remove a turtle's body from the shell with and hope that the turtle would live. You would actually be ripping its spine out as you did that. The reptiles, their ribs are also part of their whole skeletal system is fused to that shell, but their rest of their limbs are internally articulated, so their joints are inside, so they are able to pull their limbs and their head inside of their shell as a form of protection as well. They have that hard keratinized beak. They do not have any teeth, just that front part of their mouth is very hard, almost bone-like, and that is what they use to kind of break or rip their food. Again, their vertebrae, their ribs, their skin plates, they're all fused together. And so you have the top part of the shell called a carapace, and the bottom smooth, not domed part of their shell is called a plastron. Okay? Yeah, so you got two parts of a shell for these turtles. So this is just showing you the fusion of the spine and the carapace, the shell on the top, and as well as its sternum with the plastron on the bottom, showing you where their ribs lie. And this is kind of how it pulls its head back into its shell a little bit. The cervical vertebrae are able to bend a bit more, as well as the joints of the legs. They are able to pull those in pretty tight. Turtles, their adaptations here that we're going to talk about, they are adapted to live on land. They do not have webbed feet. We're talking about a box turtle, which is pretty common. People have these guys as pets. Their claws are fairly short. They have a very high domed shell, so it's going to be very, very rounded in shape. Their plastron on the bottom is hinged, so they have some movement on the bottom side of their shell. They're omnivores. You'll see these guys graze, but they also like to eat insects, tadpoles, small fish, things like that as well. They are threatened in a lot of states because they try to cross roads, because we might have a road that passes through their habitat, and they try to cross the road and they end up as roadkill. But the habitat loss is also a problem there too, because they like to stay kind of near water for food sources and things like that as well. This is a red-eared slider. It has less of a domed shell, and its feet are a little more webbed that way. They have that red stripe behind their eye. They can live in water or near water, but again, they don't rely on water for reproduction, and they do not rely on water for oxygen. These are also fairly common as pets, and just commonly found in this area as well. They are omnivores again, but turtles and things can require a great bit of work, and are actually invasive in some states, because turtles can be a lot of work to maintain because of their love for water and land and their food, and but people often get bored with turtles because they don't do a whole lot, and they get released into the wild and actually have become invasive because of their easy ability to reproduce and how much food they actually eat. So snapping turtle, yeah, these will take a finger off if you get on the business end of a snapping turtle. They're almost completely aquatic. They very rarely are on land other than to possibly lay their eggs, but they tend to have nesting grounds, and sometimes that means that these turtles are going to cross highways and roadways in order to get to their nesting ground, and a lot of times they do get hit by cars. They do have a very long tail. It's very wide as well. Their limbs are very muscular, as you can see from this top picture, because they walk on the bottom of the ponds and lakes a lot of times, and they do swim a little bit as well. They are omnivores. They are actually pretty good for an ecosystem because they like to eat the slower fish, the old fish, the sick fish. So they leave the healthy fish alone because they're a little bit too fast for them. So this helps with pond and lakes because it gets rid of those old and sick fish and allows only the healthy ones to survive. Just to scare you a little bit with the snapping turtles. Kind of looks like an old man without his dentures in. Again, they do not have teeth, but you can see on the front of its face here, we've got this hard beak used for catching prey and things. But also look at these claws. Look at those things. You do not want to be on the business end of those. I will put this video up of how a snapping turtle will open its mouth and kind of wiggle its tongue, and it uses it as bait to catch fish and other things that are swimming by. The alligator snapping turtle is the largest freshwater turtle in the world. It doesn't really come further north than Missouri because, again, reptiles are cold-blooded, so they do maintain their body temperature by their surroundings. Some adaptations of tortoises. So what's the difference between a turtle and a tortoise? Well, these guys aren't really reliant on water at all. They don't go swimming. They are pretty much land animals only. It is my hope to one day have a pet tortoise. One of my friends does. His name is Turbo. Turbo is huge, but I want a little guy. I wanted to keep a little one, like a Russian tortoise. But they are strictly herbivores and tend to live in drier environments as well. They do not have any webbing between their phalanges. Their nails tend to be flat and blunt, not really sharp at all. And their feet are more clubby than webbed at all. This is a tortoise, the last tortoise to have lived on Pinta Island in the Galapagos. And if you remember from biology, the Galapagos Islands were heavily explored by Charles Darwin. This is sad. And the reason that some of these tortoises died is because people started raising goats on the islands, and goats are herbivores and they eat a lot. So the problem for these tortoises is that they lost a food source because of these goats. And so this is the last Pinta Island tortoise around. And I'm not even sure to this day if George is still alive or not. I'd have to do a little snooping there. So these reptiles are in danger of losing, their ecosystem. More turtle adaptations, talking about sea turtles. There's a good several different species of sea turtle. This one here, the green sea turtle, is typically the one that you guys think of like from Finding Nemo and stuff like that. When you say sea turtle, it's typically the green sea turtle. There's also a hawksbill sea turtle and the leatherback, which is more of a soft-shelled turtle, and that's why it's called a leatherback. But look at the size of that turtle. They live a very long time. They can grow to be quite large, and they feed on a variety of different things that also helps too. There's 7 different species of sea turtles. They are adapted to saltwater life, and they are one of the most heavily threatened and endangered species on the planet as well. Their feet have been modified into flippers for swimming. The only reason they're ever on land is because the females come on land to lay their eggs in the sand. They lay a lot of eggs, and that's because predators like raccoons and things will actually dig them up. People also suck and think that, oh, there's a turtle nest, I want to see the turtle eggs, and dig them up. In some countries, they are dug up commercially to be eaten, which is also another big issue on the planet. But these sea turtles actually have those salt glands in their nostrils at the corner of their eyes to help release that excess salt. They're opportunistic predators, meaning that they just kind of eat what's moving past them. They will feed on sea sponges. They will eat Portuguese man-o-war. They'll eat jellyfish. So they are predators, but they will also eat, they're omnivores as well. A lot of them are endangered and, like I said, threatened because they're losing their nesting areas, the water pollution, they're overhunted, things like that. All right, so let's talk about the order Crocodilia. Okay, 21 different species of crocodiles, alligators, caiman, and cavials or gharials. I'll put up some video links of these guys for you as well. These anatomically are more closely related to birds than some other reptiles, and it has to do with their four-chambered heart. They have their eye sockets are triangular, and they have some different skull characteristics that also make them more closely related to birds. But they're also the ones that have been around the longest and are the least changed in the last several million years. So gharials, their teeth and jaws are adapted to eating fish and crustaceans like crabs and things. They are not a threat to humans. There's less than 200 of them left in the wild. You can recognize a gharial by its thin, elongated snout, and then they have this bulbous point at the end of its snout. Males is much, much larger. That's because when they're in the water, the male will blow bubbles and produce a really distinct sound in order to attract a female. And I will put up some of those mating habit videos for you for today as well, because they're pretty interesting. So here's how you can tell the difference between an alligator, a crocodile, a caiman, and a gavial. So it all has to do with the shape of their snouts. So if you look at the alligator, it's very wide and flat. Okay, the crocodile is much more narrow. The gavial is also extremely small, and the caiman is not as long. Caimans look very much like smaller, darker alligators. And the crocodile also has a couple of other different things that we're going to see as well. If you look at these side openings of the crocodile mouth, you see how its teeth are more exposed than that of the alligator. And you can also see with the gavial that its teeth are almost completely bared all of the time as well. So that's another way you can take a look and determine whether you're looking at an alligator, a crocodile, a caiman, or a gavial. Internal anatomy here, you're going to see a lot of things that look familiar, even similar to that of the frog. We do have a cloacal opening for reproduction and digestive purposes. Sorry, the words were just eluding me. We are going to have a four-chambered heart with this order of animals, and you could also see the more complex digestive system. So the crocodile heart, you are seeing that the ventricle is now divided completely into left and right ventricles, and we still have those two atrium as well. So some crocodile adaptations, we have that elongated snout for capturing prey. And they've got more of a sideways motion with them as they walk. Their nostrils and eyes are on top of their skull so that when they're in water and low lying, they can still breathe and see. They have a flap at the back of their tongue that allows them to hold their mouth open underwater without actually swallowing water. So a lot of times crocodiles will just kind of lay on the bottom, open their mouth, lays there for a while, fish swims by, keeps its mouth shut. They are also ambush predators in that way. They do have a secondary palate bone that helps separate their mouth and their nasal cavities. So this is why they're able to have that epiglottis forming that tight seal and breathing out of their nose, and that way they're not breathing in water at the same time because there's that separation of the mouth and nasal cavities. They will eat their prey whole. They will swallow them whole. They also will eat rocks on occasion that help break down their prey in their stomachs. Yeah, because they swallow everything whole. They are oviparous. They lay eggs to reproduce, so there's no live birth here. And the mom is very protective of the nest. And there can be a little bit of maternal care after the babies are born, where she'll lead them to the water and help with hunting. But then after that, that's about it for them. Some female crocodiles are known to eat other crocodiles and alligators young as well. So this is why they reproduce several offspring and not just one. A lot of these adaptations allow crocodiles to become the largest reptiles left on the planet as well, because that way they can live a real long time. The longer you live, the bigger you get. They also have a very efficient nervous system, circulatory system. They kind of have a primitive diaphragm, that muscle that separates the thoracic and abdominal cavity. There is a crocodile that lives in the Nile in Africa that is said to be the largest living reptile on the planet currently. That's like if you guys have ever seen Lake Placid, that's enough to scare anybody. And he may also be the last of the largest crocodiles. Sphenodontidae is going to be our Tutaras, the wedge tooth reptiles. There's 2 species of them left, and they're only found on a few islands in and around New Zealand. They are lizard-like, but they are not the true lizard, so they're kind of the in-between between the alligators and crocodiles and the lizards. And some can be very odd looking. We're going to see that these guys are going to have an upper and lower jaw. They have some teeth that is a little more, they're attached differently to their skull than what other reptiles are. They have 2 rows of teeth on the upper jaw and a single row on the bottom, and they have very strong jaws. Their ribs are also rather unique in the way that they are attached. It almost looks like upper and lower ribs, so it gives them a lot of protection in those areas around their vital organs. They have a very well developed parietal eye, that third eye. It has a lens and a retina, and it's kind of like a translucent spot on their head, and it helps to regulate a lot of their physiological and biological cycles. Reptiles that are in peril are typically ones that are oviparous and live in burrows. These are, these guys here that we're just talking about, the Torterra. They come out at dusk and they go and dawn to just eat the little inverts, so insects and things like that, and small vertebrates that they find. They used to be found all over New Zealand, but now they're only found on a couple of the islands just off the coast of New Zealand. Rats and things will also eat their prey, or compete for prey and eat the babies. So just not a good thing. So this is another order of reptiles is also threatened. All right. So probably my least favorite order, just because things creep me out. So the order Squamata. These are our scale-bearing reptiles. So these are our lizards and snakes and worm lizards. Yeah, so we're going to look at the suborder Sauria, which is the lizards, and serpentines, which is the snakes, and the amphibania, which is the worm lizards. So let's look at our lizards first here. So I've got a variety of them to show you. Some looking like they belong in Jurassic Park. Whew, things that creep me out. Usually have at least 2 pairs of legs, so they are going to have 4 limbs. They have an upper and lower jaw that unite anteriorly, so towards the front part of their jaw is where they are hinged. They are oviparous, although some of them are ovoviviparous and viviparous. And they have a variety of feeding styles and methods, so they can be herbivores, omnivores, or carnivores. So the big thing is that most of them are oviparous and have 2 pairs of legs and will live in a variety of habitats. Some of these lizards are venomous and can be fatal. The 2 biggest ones that are the 2 species of venomous lizards are the Gila monster and the Mexican beaded lizard. They are found in North America in the southwestern portions. They'll spend many months burrowed away, being inactive, and only coming out at night to feed on insects, bird eggs, and other slow-moving vertebrates, because these guys aren't necessarily the fastest of the lizards. They do have venom glands in their lower jaw, and the gland secretes the venom and it kind of coats their teeth. So as the lizard is chewing or biting their prey, it is injecting the venom into them. But rarely fatal to humans, mostly because we just don't mess with them. And there is some research that there is a protein produced by the Gila monsters that might be used in treatment for diabetes now. But both of these organisms, the Gila monster and the Mexican beaded lizard, are endangered due to habitat loss and other human interactions. Ugh, the least favorite one, the one that gives me the heebie-jeebies. All right, snakes. They crawl, no limbs. Got it. Many of them are harmless. Most of them are harmless. But about 300 different species on the planet are venomous. Only about 9 or 10 of those are found in the United States. They have elongated bodies and no limbs. They can have up to 200 vertebrae, and they do have ribs. And this helps with their motion. They have upper jaws that are movable on the skull. Our upper jaw is fused with our skull. You can't move. We can only move our bottom. Whereas in these snakes, they can move their upper and lower jaws. This is why they call it like unhinging their jaw. It's because it's just attached by muscle. It's not actually attached bone to bone. So each part of their jaw is able to move independently. They can move their top or their bottom, and this helps when they are trying to swallow large prey. And all of these guys are going to be carnivores. So this anatomy here, so you can see that the upper and lower jaws are able to both be moved in order to swallow prey that is significantly larger than they are. And they're able to walk their jaws, so they just take inch by inch of their prey into their mouth. This is a python eating a kangaroo. I have lots of different videos I'm going to post for you guys to check out. Like I have one, I think if it's either a python or an anaconda that starts choking on prey and actually spits it back up. It's pretty intense. So I'm going to post some video links for you guys too, just to check out, because there's some weird stuff that some of these animals can do. But their jaws are very flexible. So you can see, the snake eating a toad here, a snake eating another snake, a snake that has eaten some eggs. Like I said, prey can be extremely large. I'm going to put up all of these video links for you guys. This is a python that was killed after it had eaten an alligator in the Florida Everglades. This anaconda here had eaten a capybara, which is like a giant guinea pig. This is a snake that actually, this is when it regurgitates its prey. I think it was like a gazelle or something. I'll put all of these video links up for you guys on the doc too, so you can see what's going on. Snakes can't eat adult humans. They can kill us, but there's a limit on how far that jaw can actually stretch. Our shoulders tend to be too broad for a snake to swallow a human whole, or an adult human. There are reports, and unfortunately there have been cases of children being killed by ball pythons and Burmese pythons and anacondas in different countries, and reticulated pythons as well. So there's only this from 1995, there's only been one case of a reticulated python trying to eat an adult human. Usually, you know, animals won't try to kill something that is, or eat something that they know that they can't. So, all right, so pit vipers. We're going to talk about the difference between a pit viper and a, the word is escaping me right now. We'll talk, we'll get there. I'm having trouble with words today. So vipers have what they call pits, and they're up here. Let me make sure I grab a right color. So you can see these pits up here. They're like these little openings by their nostrils, and they're used to detect heat. And so this is, if they have these, they're called a pit viper, and they're helped with detecting heat, which helps them detect prey. And they're very accurate, a hundredth of a degree, or a tenth of a degree, sorry. Yeah, so they can really detect those temperature changes very, very easily when a prey is around. They also have modified teeth that are used to deliver venom as well. So inside of their fangs, they have these venom canals. Venomous snakes, some that are found in New York. I'll pass. Reasons I like living in Ohio. We have an eastern masaga, we have a timber rattlesnake, and we even have the northern copperhead. I'll pass. Like I want nothing to do with snakes, just not my jam, guys. These are 3 species that are venomous in New York State alone. There was a news report of a lake down here I live in Canton, and a little bit further south of me is a lake called Tappan Lake. They did just find, what did they find? Some sort of rattlesnake, I think it was. Crap, I'll have to look it up again, but it's a little terrifying because I'm like, oh, been there. That's a little creepy. Right now it is copperhead snake like birthing season. In some of the southern states, I've seen there is some warnings posted online about some snakes that are birthing right now. So snakes are believed to have evolved from lizards that would burrow, and because they burrow, they didn't really need to have limbs anymore. They also have a protective eye scale that would help with burrowing. Their elongated body has resulted in a loss of a left lung, so they only have one lung, and they only have one kidney because they don't have a very wide body. It's just very long. So one lung, one kidney. They still have vestigial pelvic girdles. So in biology, you guys learned about whales that had hips, like where their pelvis, but they were really small, and that's because they don't have rear legs anymore. So why do they need a pelvis if they don't have rear legs? Because those rear legs are used for walking. So the idea is that they have a that small pelvis, because at one point they used to walk. Same issue here with snakes. Some of the more primitive snakes, which also happen to be some of the larger ones, the boas and the pythons, also have a very small pelvic girdle. So that implies that they once did have legs to walk. Let's look at the worm lizards, which are super creepy. It's like a cross between a lizard and a snake. But they do walk. There's about 135 different species, which is quite a lot. Most of them are burrowing and are found in Africa, South America, and the Middle East. They are legless, but they have kind of like a scoop-shaped skull that they use their head to burrow with. They have a single middle tooth in their upper jaw, and they usually eat worms as they're burrowing and other insects, but they are egg layers. They are oviparous.